Okay, well, hello everybody, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us today as we're going to do a kind of an overview of the UAlberta MBA program, primarily from an international student perspective. So walk through a bit about the program, what to expect, and kind of our admission requirements as well. And then we'll be around at the end to kind of answer questions or chat about anything that might come up. Just one or two quick housekeeping items to start with. So the very first thing I'll say is that we are recording this session. So if anybody would like to make sure they don't show up on the recording, maybe just keep your cameras off. Also just say for the ease and enjoyment of everybody, probably best to keep your microphone muted as well as we work through. As we go through, if you do sort of have any questions or think of anything, just feel free to put them into the chat. Mita, who I'll get to introduce herself in a minute, will be kind of monitoring that and answering questions where she can and saving questions that are maybe need a bit longer of an answer for the end that we'll kind of walk through in more detail. And yeah, so once we kind of work through our presentation, we'll stick around as long as we have to kind of go through and answer any questions that anybody might have. And so with that, maybe just quick introduction. So my name is Chris Lynch, and I'm a senior director with the Masters in Professional Programs office at the University of Alberta, and kind of oversee our MBA programs and some of our other programs as well. And I myself graduated from our MBA program in 2010, which to say is 11 years ago feels like a very long time. It definitely doesn't feel like it was quite that long. And joining me today, and kind of who'll be doing the second half of our presentation, is Aileen. So I'll get Aileen to maybe just say a few quick words of hello as well.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Happy Monday, and today's also International Women's Day, so happy International Women's Day. Again, like Chris mentioned, my name is Aileen. I am the director of the full-time and part-time MBA program, so I oversee those two programs. Like Chris, I'm also a graduate of the MBA program in 2016, so not quite as long as him, but I have been through the program, and we're both here to chat with you today and happy to answer any questions you have. So thanks for joining us, and I'll pass it over to Mita now.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Mita, and I'm the Admissions and Administrative Assistant at the office. So as Chris mentioned, I'll be monitoring the chats. So if you have any questions about our programs or the presentation, feel free to pop it in, and I'll get back to you with an answer or leave it towards the end for Chris and Aileen to go over.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Mita. And maybe next time we'll put your picture up in here as well. No, a shake of the head. No, Mita doesn't want that. That's okay. So we are the University of Alberta, and I think it's maybe just worthwhile to start with an idea of sort of where we are. So this is a picture of Edmonton, and looking on kind of the left-hand side of your screen, that's the start of downtown Edmonton. Kind of splitting the city in the middle is the North Saskatchewan River. On both sides of the river, a lot of green space and trees. So it's our river valley, which we're, I think, quite proud of, and everybody's very happy to kind of go for a bit of a stroll through nature that spans the entire city, kind of running down the river. And then directly on the right-hand side of the river, center of your screen on the other side, is the University of Alberta itself. So we are very, very centrally located in Edmonton. Edmonton itself is home to roughly 1.5 million people throughout our entire metropolitan area, making it the 5th largest city in Canada. And we're affectionately known as Canada's Festival City for the number of festivals and events that go on. It's maybe been a bit more virtual this year than in person most of the festivals, but usually there's always something going on every weekend for different events and activities. The University of Alberta itself has been around as a formal university since 1908. The School of Business has been around at the University of Alberta since 1916, where we started as a school of accountancy. So also the business school has been around for a very long time. University is home to roughly 400 or roughly 40,000 students from about 150 different countries, about 32,000 undergraduate students, and 8,000 to 9,000 graduate students. And we consistently rank as a top 5 university in Canada. So that's maybe just a high level idea of kind of the university and the city. More specifically, we'll kind of chat about the MBA degree itself, or the Master of Business Administration. So the MBA itself is first and foremost designed to be kind of a broad general management focused degree. Most will have some option later on for kind of electives or specialization, but first and foremost, it is kind of a broad general management type degree. It is a degree that is well established. So it was first offered in the earliest 20th century in kind of the northeastern United States, and has grown and expanded quite considerably from there. It was first offered here at the University of Alberta in 1964, so a degree we've offered for over 50 years as well. It is intended as a professional focused degree, and in most cases it is what would be considered a terminal degree, in that for most students it's usually the last degree they will take. It's not designed to prepare somebody to move on to kind of further graduate or doctoral studies. Some students certainly do that, but that's not the intent. It's designed to be kind of a professional focused degree. And so coming in, what can you expect? Well, first and foremost, it is general management, so you can expect a good solid grounding in business fundamentals from an analytical kind of analysis perspective, from more functional practical skills, and also a solid grounding in kind of business ethics and kind of socially responsible kind of management. High level strategy and leadership is probably an expectation of things you'll be able to kind of understand and hopefully practice later on in your career going through the MBA program. It is designed, through everything to build and further hone and develop those critical thinking skills. It is in many ways a transformative experience, not just from kind of what you'll learn in the program itself, but from involvement in a lot of extracurricular activities and through work and development with our Career Management Center. And hopefully everybody here will be very active and engaged with our Career Management Center, because degree is usually intended for students that are looking to make a pretty significant change or advancement in their career. And our careers group is there from day one to work with students and help them kind of achieve their goals through the MBA as well. And so maybe just a little bit of info about our full-time MBA, which would be the kind of option for international students. It is built around daytime courses, so that will generally mean classes Monday through Friday, anytime between 9 and 5, not necessarily 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, but classes will be in some combination of those days. Typically, I'd say most students likely have one day off a week, so it might be Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday for classes, but can expect to be in class during the day, during the week. Our cohort is generally a fairly diverse cohort. We'll go over kind of last year's entry profile in a little bit, which is a bit different due to COVID, but in general, we are looking for a cohort to be sort of half international students and half domestic students. We found that's a really good kind of mix or balance for not just bringing diverse perspectives in the classroom, but also allowing for kind of our international students to get a good grounding in kind of Canadian business practices and Canadian culture as well. As I alluded to, it is a program built around intensive career support and designed for individuals that are looking to make large-scale changes in terms of their career, whether that's by industry, by sector, by function, or even by country is probably a pretty big step in a lot of ways. A program that expects students to be very involved outside of the classroom, whether that's in our kind of main student group, the MBA Association, or in some of our more targeted or specialized student groups, or involvement in some of our external case competitions. And on the career side, the other thing I'll mention is our program is also built around students completing an internship between the first and second years of the program. So from May to August, kind of halfway through, and those are generally paid internships as well. So a great way to not only gain some practical and relevant experience, but also kind of help fund your studies as well. And so, a little more detail on kind of the class profile coming in. So I mentioned we do look for a diverse cohort, and that's diverse not just in terms of where students are from or gender, but also in terms of kind of the backgrounds and knowledge and experience they bring into the program. As you can see, it's a pretty fairly evenly distributed kind of set of backgrounds. It does vary year to year. It was perhaps a little higher in terms of business backgrounds and maybe a little lower in terms of engineering backgrounds with our cohort last year than we typically see, but usually, 20-25% of our cohort would have a business background, and 80% or more of students would come in without formal business training. As I said, our kind of cohort for this year, 2020, is definitely a bit of an outlier. Not so much in terms of years of average age or years of experience. Those are pretty consistent. The kind of biggest change was definitely in terms of our international cohort. So while pre-COVID, we were definitely on track to be about half our cohort being international, obviously with travel and border restrictions and kind of a university's move to have a lot of online courses in fall 2020. We ended up with a much lower international kind of cohort than we would typically be looking for or expect. My expectation with a large return to in-person courses planned for fall 2021 as well is that we'll be back to our kind of typical 50-50 cohort ratio. I've alluded a few times to kind of the career support that's available, and maybe just a quick kind of highlight of sort of what they'll offer. So it is, as I mentioned, a kind of comprehensive career management plan in place for students throughout the whole program. It actually begins with our orientation. I'd say probably 60-70% of orientation is driven around kind of career programming from the very start, designed for kind of students to first get an idea of their own self, their strengths, what they're looking to gain, how they're kind of looking to use their knowledge and abilities and the MBA together to kind of advance their careers. After orientation, students will get assigned a dedicated career coach who's there to work with them throughout the entire 2 years of the program. There's more targeted programming and actual coursework that's required of students through our Career Center as well. And then to build off of that throughout the whole program in terms of networking and kind of industry connections, there are a number of events like our industry snapshots, our mentorship program, and then obviously the internship period as well to kind of help hone your skills and be well prepared for postgraduate career success. And on the career side, I will say later this week, admittedly in the evening in Edmonton, which might be an inconvenient time depending on where you are, our careers director will be running a career session as part of our open house week. So a full kind of hour-long webinar run by our director, Corey Foged, around kind of the career model and support and answering questions in a bit more detail on that front. So with that, kind of maybe a bit more focus just on the program itself. So the MBA degree through us is 20 courses. So it's a full 20 courses, 60 credits, so 3 credits per course. It's built around kind of 10 core or common courses that essentially all students will take. Our MBA capstone course is kind of a capping experience for the program, and then 9 electives that you can kind of build or choose to take kind of whatever you would like in the program. In most cases, students will probably take courses that are tied to one of our 5 career tracks, but you're certainly open to kind of taking anything. You don't have to follow one of those, or can choose to take individual courses from each of them and kind of mix and match however you would like. And within those 20 courses, there are also a number of different international options to kind of further your degree beyond just Edmonton and Canada. So some of those are, study tours, longer term exchanges, a full year at one of our partner schools through a dual degree. And so we'll go through some of those in a bit more detail later on, but a high level idea is 20 courses and some options and flexibility in terms of what the second half of those requirements look like. So in terms of the core curriculum itself, that's tied around, essentially 9 courses or 27 credits in kind of core common courses that every single student in the program will take, plus a core elective, which will require you to choose one of the 4 courses sort of listed on there. Between the core and the core elective, designed to cover off a lot of the kind of key business knowledge and skills and abilities that we expect every single student graduating with an MBA degree to have. So those are the things that we as a school and as a program feel are kind of vital and important for everyone to have. And then beyond that, it's really up to you sort of what you're looking to make your degree kind of do or help you with in your own career moving forward. With that, those 9 courses essentially that you'd have in the way of electives, you can choose to take them from any of the different kind of subject areas that we have: accounting, business, technology management, marketing, operations management, etc. Between them, we probably have, I'm going to say, 50 to 60 different electives to choose from in the program. And then kind of the other part and kind of the last course you'll do in the second year. So typically you would do all of your core courses during year 1, and in year 2, it would primarily be elective courses and the MBA capstone itself. Our capstone course, which is SMO or SEM 641, is as a regular 3-credit course and done throughout the regular course of the term along with other coursework, but it's built around doing a live consulting project for an external organization. So every year we will bring in probably 15 to 20 different projects that students are able to work on. Students will join a team and with help of the instructor work on kind of analyzing the situation, developing potential solutions, and kind of ultimately coming up with a recommendation and implementation plan for the organization. So it's designed to not only give students some ability to apply what they've learned in the program in the real world out for a real organization, but also tied into kind of credit for the program as well, and the capping course for our entire degree itself. So I kind of touched on electives and maybe a bit high level. It's maybe now a good idea to just do a quick outline of the different career tracks that we have. So we have 5 different career tracks. They're somewhat new for us. We introduced them in 2018 as a career track. They're built around not just areas of kind of knowledge and expertise that we have within our coursework on our faculty, but also designed to be in areas that we see students kind of looking to kind of move or expand their career in after graduation as well. So they're designed to essentially tie both the academic and industry demands together and kind of prepare students to move on to careers within those industries or sectors or areas. For us, I won't walk through, reading them off or kind of the different courses themselves, but the key ones are up there. But I will say for us, we typically see about half our students directly follow a specific career track, and about half our students will do what we call or consider to be a general degree, where they would kind of pick and choose individual courses. It is possible with kind of the 9 electives that you have to take, an entire career track and then most of the courses from a second one. Also potentially possible to take, 1 or 2 courses from each of the different career tracks. Possible to get through the whole degree without taking, any course from any of the career tracks as well. So it really is flexible and kind of adaptive to your own needs and interests in that sense. So maybe the kind of next thing I'll touch on quickly are some of the international options, and I'll go through the individual sort of study tours that we have and exchange options in a little bit. But at the short end, we have kind of our short-term international experiences. So those are tied around 1 to 3 weeks of kind of study abroad. For us, we run or organize a couple of study tours ourselves each year. Study tours in that, it's organized and run by us, but it is a 3-credit course that would count towards your degree. And it's built around a visit to a location and different organizations that are not that common in kind of Edmonton area. And so a chance for students to, experience different industries, different regions, different cultures, and kind of how they look at and approach business. We have exchange courses with a number of our different partner schools where you would just look to go and study for 2 or 3 weeks at one of our partner schools and then have that course count back towards the MBA degree as well. And then our Frontiers of Business course, which is a 6-credit course and probably be best to describe as a combination between our capstone course and a study tour. So it's built around a directed project for an external organization, but one in a different part of the world that requires sort of travel to work on as well. On the exchange side, you can choose to go for much longer than a single course. So we have 4-month-long exchanges at a lot of our partners. And we also have, with 3 of our partners, the option to do what we call a dual degree. And that would be built around essentially completing the first year of the MBA at the University of Alberta and completing the second year entirely at one of our partner schools. And at the end of kind of those 2 years of study, you'd actually graduate with 2 different degrees. So an MBA from us and either an MSc in business or an MBA degree from one of those 3 partner schools as well. So a great way to not only get some of that international experience, but 2 credentials to go along with it as well. So for study tours, kind of just a very quick overview. The most recent one that we've done, which was in February 2020, before COVID came and kind of put an end to our study tours for a year and a bit, was a trip to the US West Coast. So very tech and innovation focused. And in the past, we've been to both San Francisco and Seattle. This past trip was just to San Francisco, and kind of some of the companies that we visited are up there. But designed to be very tech and innovation focused and meet with sort of organizations that are not necessarily based or headquartered in Edmonton as well. Another trip that we've had has been our European study tour. That's primarily been to Germany and kind of a secondary country each year. But this trip is built around family business. And so typically meeting with, anywhere from kind of 5th to 10th generation family businesses and how they've managed to grow and expand and reach kind of a very large level, while still maintaining ownership and control within the family, and how to balance some of those growth dynamics with the typical sort of family dynamics and succession planning that come with that. So just obviously a chance to meet organizations that have been around much longer than our university has existed. And then kind of the last thing I'll touch on for the travel abroad piece for a study tour, but our Frontiers of Business course. So as I mentioned, it's kind of a combination between our capstone course and our study tour itself. One, perhaps the easiest one to highlight is kind of the first project that our students did in our Frontiers of Business course, but was built around a trip to Ethiopia. There was a large amount of prep work beforehand and then essentially 2 weeks on the ground, but it was working with the Health Ministry of Ethiopia on developing a business case and business plan for a regional cancer care center to serve both Ethiopia and a number of surrounding countries. So a great way to not only get some experience and understanding of how business and operations work in other countries, but also a chance to kind of use and apply some of what you've learned in the program as well. There's been other projects, done 2 different ones in Ghana and 2 in the Philippines, and I think we were I think we virtually did a project for Colombia in 2020 as well. There are definitely plans to travel, but again, COVID kind of put a stop to that. But I think a great way to not only have some of that international experience, but also feel like you're applying what you've learned in the program as well. So high level, some of our exchange partners. So we have about 25 different partners spread across a number of different countries. So kind of all of them up there. I will say most of our students are probably doing exchanges in Europe. That's just kind of the kind of typical destination that they choose to go. And the same holds true with our dual degree options. So whilst we have partners in France, Germany, and Japan, I'd say almost all of our students that choose to do the dual degree do choose to go to EdHec in France. And with EdHec, they do have 2 different campuses. So one in Nice in the south of France, and I've heard it's nice in Nice, and one in Lille in northern France as well. So kind of depending on what you're looking to study, would be a different campus for that. The last kind of course aspect I think I'll talk about is just some of the different experiential learning options that are built into the program as well. So while every student will have our capstone course as a requirement and a chance to sort of apply what they've learned in the program, there are a number of other kind of both courses and extracurricular activities to get involved in that will kind of give you lots of opportunity to build your skills and kind of practice what you've learned in the program as well. We are part of the Creative Destruction Lab Rockies, where students would, as part of a 6-credit course that runs the entire year, work with seed stage ventures and help them kind of build financial models and how to access funds and go to market and ultimately scale kind of their organization as well. So that's a really fun and interesting class built around the kind of financing side of new ventures and helping companies grow. And so that's a great way to kind of get some exposure to that area. We do, through our Net Impact student group, the opportunity to do consulting projects for local nonprofit organizations. This is extracurricular, so not part of a course and not for credit, but would be a great way to not only apply what you've learned and help out kind of local nonprofits, but also gain some consulting experience and guidance from some of our alum at KPMG that help out with students and kind of help plan some of the different projects that they do in that sense. And then a number of courses, there's more than that, but those are just some of the different courses where there's kind of applied learning projects built into the class. So for instance, in our new venture creation class, that course, as you can probably guess from the title, is built around developing a comprehensive business plan for a new venture, analyzing the market, barriers to entry, areas for growth, and ultimately whether or not kind of your idea is a feasible one to move forward with. So kind of lots, essentially just lots of different courses designed to not only kind of teach the theoretical side of business, but also chances to apply that and gain some of those more practical skills as well. I've touched on a couple of different student groups, but kind of as a high-level overview, the MBA Association is kind of the organization that's made up of every single student within the MBA. As soon as you enter the program, you become a member of our MBA Student Association. They, oversee everything. The most direct things that they're involved in are a lot of the social and networking type events that the school organizes and puts on and kind of help facilitate a lot of that community building and bonding with students. But they also oversee some more targeted student groups that have a bit more targeted focus. So one is, Net Impact that I mentioned with those consulting projects. They're very community focused and also hold speakers and events around the more socially responsible side of business. We have our women's network that's focused maybe more specifically on some of the unique challenges and opportunities for women in business as well. And then we also have our MBA Games team, which every year will take 30 to 40 of our MBA students to participate in the Cross Canada MBA Games, where there's about 20 different MBA programs in Canada that will send teams to compete in academic, sporting, and kind of social activities. So that's a great way to not only really strengthen relationships with kind of your peers in the class as you're traveling across Canada to participate, but also a way to get to know a large number of students from other programs across the country as well. So that's a high level about the program, maybe a bit more the practical side of things. So in terms of, tuition and fees for the program, so as an international student, we do offer guaranteed tuition for the program. So the kind of amount of tuition you're going to be quoted or included on your admission letter will be the tuition that you pay for the entire program, essentially split into two between the first and second year, including both tuition and non-instructional fees. The total tuition for the program works out to about $60,000 Canadian. In addition to that, kind of cost of living, those are very rough numbers. I will say, we've certainly seen students that are able to get by on less than that. And depending on kind of life circumstances and how much you might like to enjoy yourself, we could easily see students spending more than that as well, but that's a pretty safe range in kind of what to expect or plan. And the picture we have there is some of the graduate residences on campus at the university. So no course requirement to stay on campus, given our location in sort of the middle of Edmonton and kind of ease of access to get around. I'll say probably most of our students choose to live off campus. There's more options and both higher and lower in terms of cost and still pretty easy and accessible to get around. So that was the tuition side. In terms of the kind of funding and scholarships and support available. So we do have entrance awards that we give out to students upon admission into the program. No separate application is required for those. They range every year from kind of $2,000 to $10,000. And yeah, primarily just based on the same things that we would evaluate applications for. So GPA, GMAT score, et cetera. And then in addition to entrance awards, we have in-program scholarships. So there's probably 3 different times in the year where we'd give out in-program scholarships or awards. Can range from about $1,000 up to about $15,000. In program, they're primarily based either on academic excellence, so GPA and performance in courses you've taken as part of the MBA itself, or based on engagement and involvement outside of classrooms. So students that have taken on leadership positions within kind of student groups or student clubs or a lot of the extracurriculars activities. So looking to recognize students that are either performing, academically well, or that are adding to the overall experience for students in the MBA itself. So that was a lot of kind of a quick overview of the program itself and kind of some of the key info to be aware of. Up next, we'll kind of go through the different admission requirements and what we look for in an application. I'll just start with a very quick high level as to how they work, and then turn it over to Aileen to maybe go through in a bit more detail all of the different requirements and things that we look for. And I will just say, so picture up there right now is the old arts building, which is right next to the business building on campus, and is certainly a nice building to see every single day coming into work. So not a bad way to start the day, looking at a beautiful old building like that. So at the university, we are part of the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research. How essentially graduate admissions work. At the most basic or practical level, students themselves kind of look at and find the program that they're interested in and complete the application to those programs. So I'm assuming probably interested in the MBA if you're here, so apply to study the MBA degree at the University of Alberta. So then our program, so our office would review applications, go through our entire assessment process, and then decide which of those applicants we would like to admit, but we are not the ones that would send out a formal admission letter. What would happen is we would essentially put our recommendations onto our Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research, and then they're the group that would send out formal or official admission letters to every single graduate student at the University of Alberta, whether they're pursuing the MBA, a PhD in chemical engineering. That doesn't really matter what. That's kind of their role, is to send out formal admission letters to every student, but it is our office or our program that would decide who would ultimately be admitted. And so with that, kind of what we look for when it comes to an application and sort of how the whole process works. Once we get a completed application and kind of all the documents we would ask for, we would do first then an initial review and look at, make sure everything that we require or ask for has been included. And if not, we would follow up with you and ensure we get sort of all the documents that we need. Once an application is indeed complete, we would do an academic evaluation and look at the kind of the different pieces of your application to try and gain confidence that you'd be able to do well academically in the program. So that's where we're going to be looking at, your prior academic performance, scores on standardized tests, that sort of thing. Once we're actually confident someone's going to be able to do well academically, we don't put a large amount of emphasis on academics and admission decisions beyond that. So ultimately, it doesn't matter if you have, a standardized test score at our minimum or at, pretty much the maximum. Once we're kind of confident you'll be able to get through the academic side of the program, we don't put a lot of weight on that moving forward. What we'll actually then focus on is sort of the experience and what you bring into the program, where we're looking at, what you've done professionally in your career, what you've done outside of your formal role as well, what you'd be able to add or contribute in the way of experiences and viewpoints into the classroom as well. And so we'd evaluate that through certain parts of your application. We'd evaluate that through the interviews that we conduct as part of the program as well. So we do interview all students that we consider for admission. And ultimately, after taking everything into account, looking at what you'd bring into the program, whether or not our program is a good fit and one that's going to be able to help you meet your goals as well, come to sort of our final decision in terms of admission, and send out admission offers with our Faculty of Graduate Studies after that. So high level, that's sort of the basic steps that we would take when it comes to evaluating an application. And I'm now going to pass it over to Aileen to go through our entire application process and requirements in a fair bit more detail.
Great, thanks, Chris. So as Chris mentioned, we'll just be going through the application process and what's required in your application in a little bit more detail. I know a lot of you might have some questions around this, so I'm happy to hopefully address some of those. If not, we'll get to them at the end. But essentially for this slide, we really wanted to highlight that while these are all of the components of your application, we're going to be taking a very holistic approach to reviewing your application. So there's not necessarily one component that's much more important or anything like that. We really want to get a holistic review of you academically, of you professionally, taking other things into consideration, such as your statement of intent, what you're hoping to do, and review from your reference letters, how they feel about your performance and things like that. So we are going to be looking at all of these things when we are taking you into consideration for admission to our program. In terms of our academic entrance requirements, so typically, yes, we'll ask that you have an undergraduate degree. Most of those are four-year undergraduate degrees. If you do have a three-year undergraduate degree, get in touch with us. That also might be okay as well. It can be from any discipline. So we really, again, want to recruit a diverse class. So it doesn't have to be from business specifically. We have people coming in from arts, from engineering, from various backgrounds. So that is a great aspect of your application if you do have something different and you come from a different background. In general, we're looking at your admission GPA, which is different from your cumulative GPA or CGPA. So we will be looking at the last 2 years or 60 credits of study. And with that, essentially that we want to see about a 3.0 on a 4 scale or a B. So we would essentially be translating your marks from whichever country or institution that you attended into our 4-point scale. So we're really going to want to see, again, that 3.0 or a B over the last 2 years or 60 credits of study. So we've listed some common equivalents here for just a few countries that we see a greater number of applications, but certainly we have a more comprehensive list if you're curious to know what your country, what a B would be in your country. We're happy to get that information for you. But yeah, these are a couple here. So if your country is on here, great. And if you'd like more information, just let us know at the end. In terms of the transcripts requirements, so we do require transcripts from all of your post-secondary education. So whether that's from an undergraduate degree or prior graduate degree, we do want to see any transfer courses. So perhaps you started your undergraduate degree at one institution and then started at a different institution. We will want to see marks from both of those institutions when you're applying for the MBA program. In addition, any exchange credits. So if you did a study abroad for a semester, we will need to see those grades from that specific exchange, and then also from any in progress or incomplete courses. So really we need to see everything related to your undergraduate or graduate degree that you've completed so far. As well, we'll look for your degree certificates. So you do need to submit a degree certificate if it's not listed on your transcripts, the degree that's awarded, the date that date that it was awarded as well. So if you have questions about that specifically, you can get in touch with us and we'll look at your specific transcripts or mark sheets, whatever you have, and let you know whether or not that's required. And for the purpose of your application, you will just be submitting copies of your documents on the online portal. And if you're admitted to the MBA program, at that point, we will ask for official documents. In terms of uploading your transcript, so we would prefer PDF format. If you can take, copies, pictures of your transcripts, degree certificates, so on and so forth. We would ask that they're issued in the last year. If they weren't, you will have to get new copies issued so that you can upload those to your application. We do prefer official transcripts. So again, taking a picture of your official transcripts or mark sheets. However, if you do have unofficial transcripts, this is just a list of what we would be looking for if you do want to upload copies of your unofficial transcripts. So just making sure you have the print date and your name, the name of an institution, grading scale, names and number of courses, years of attendance, and then credit and grades awarded. In terms of your requirements for those of you who have completed education outside of North America, again, we want you to upload those in a PDF format, and we'll require them to be in the original language as well as English. So if the original language is not in English, we would like both your transcripts and your degree certificate to be in the original language, and then as well as in English. So we do want to see the grading scale, because typically each institution will have a slightly different grading scale, because again, we want to confirm that you have that 3.0 or B average over your last 2 years or 60 credits of study. And also, if you're coming from a country that specifically might be India or Pakistan, we will be asking that you upload your mark sheets as well. So please include those in your online application. If you are applying with education from China, we will also ask that you include your graduate certificate in addition to sort of your transcripts and your degree certificate. And then we will request a certified English translation of documents if, again, your education if your documents were issued in a language other than English. Moving on now to the standardized test component of your application. So we typically find that standardized tests, whether that's a GMAT or GRE score, is a good predictor of success in the program. So it also allows us a common comparison point among applicants. So I'll be speaking more specifically about the GMAT and GRE. We do also accept an executive assessment, but typically that's reserved for our applicants to the Executive MBA program. And the GMAT is required, so we don't have a preference whether you submit a GMAT or GRE. Either is fine. We do find that most students will submit a GMAT score to us, but of course we do receive some GRE scores every year. You might be wondering, can I get an exemption from the GMAT or GRE requirement? If you hold a PhD, we would ask that you get in touch with our office and we can see if that might be an option, because we do sometimes offer waivers if you hold a PhD degree. So we will put our email address in the chat. If you'd like to send us your profile, we can let you know. Also, we do make exceptions for individuals who completed a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Alberta, so a business degree from the U of A. And then some of our combined degree applicants, we may waive the GMAT or GRE because we'll take their other test scores. So for example, our MBA program, we may take the MCAT instead of the GMAT exam or GRE. And then also some executive MBA applicants, if they have 30 years of work experience, we would weight that a bit more heavily than a standardized test score. A little bit more specifics now into the GMAT exam. So it is business or MBA specific. You'll have 4 sections. So if you haven't already written the GMAT exam, these are the sections that you'll be wanting to study for. So you have your quant section, your verbal section, integrated reasoning, and analytical writing. The exam is offered both in person and online in most places. So you can go to gmat.com to check what options are available in your particular location. And as of April 8th, so I guess in a month today from now, they will be offering the analytical writing assessment as part of the online exam. Prior to that, the online exam did not offer the AW or analytical writing section. Once you write your GMAT score, it's valid for 5 years. So if you're somebody that maybe doesn't have the work experience yet to apply for an MBA program, but it's something that you're thinking about, definitely write your GMAT exam. That score will be okay for a couple years. And then in terms of what we look for, so again, there's no checkbox in terms of you need to have exactly this score, but we are looking for a minimum score of 550. So that's your overall GMAT score. And in terms of competitive scores, usually, around low 600s is considered competitive, but it does vary from year to year. And in terms of studying, it really depends what works best for you. So we do offer online GMAT prep courses through our Faculty of Extension. One is coming up pretty soon. If you would like to schedule that, you can actually have sort of an in-class experience and learn everything that way. You can also, order books and just do some self-study if that's sort of how you learn best. And also the GMAT.com website will have different sample problems and questions, so you can go through practice exams and just see how you're scoring and maybe identify the areas that you need to spend a little bit more time on. Now moving into the GRE and the executive assessment. So I won't spend too much time on these because at the end of the day, they'll be somewhat similar to the GMAT exam. The GRE, the difference though, is that we are only looking at the 3 sections. So your quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and analytical writing. And we don't have a set score in terms of you need to have this amount in verbal reasoning and this amount in quantitative reasoning. We just want to see an overall score that's in the 50th percentile or higher. And in terms of the executive assessment, again, this is only for executive MBA applicants, but it has the 3 sections similar to the GRE. And again, just measuring the preparedness for, the business program, and then as well as identifying your business skills and how you're scoring on those different aspects. Now moving into your professional experience. So this is a very important part of your application. It's really letting us know a little bit about what you've been doing so far. It's important for us to see how you'll be engaged in class and also the success that you'll have post-graduation. So we, again, are looking for at least 2 years of postgraduate work experience. It doesn't have to be specific in an industry, as we've mentioned, but here are some averages for our full-time and part-time executive programs with what the typical amount of experience is. So will we accept somebody that has over the 4 years experience into the full-time program? Of course. And would we accept somebody that has less than 4 years? Of course. So again, it's really just, these are just the general guidelines of what we're following from that. And we want to see career progression. So if you're somebody that's been working for 5 or 6 years, we want to see that you've been moving into roles with increasing responsibility and maybe, moving into a senior type of a role where you're actually supervising a team or overseeing different projects and things like that. So that's what we'll be looking for your work experience. In terms of your resume, so we do see a large range or variety of things in terms of your resume. So this is just a quick sort of do and maybe don't do when you're preparing your resume for your application. So again, this is a snapshot. We want to just see a quick 1 to 2 pages of your work experience. So try and avoid it being a 13-page document listing every project and things like that you've completed. Again, keep it in chronological order. Please make sure that the start dates are there as well as an end date if that's required, or if that's your current position. Sometimes we have questions like, did that person, are they still in that role? Are they not? So just make sure that all those dates are there. And then your current job or your most recent job should really have the most detail. So there we're really going to want to see you expand a little bit upon specifically if you lead a team or if you supervise a team, if there's any special projects or things that you want to highlight, do that in your most recent job section. In terms of maybe things to avoid, we do not come from, every technical background known to man. So we're not going to know a lot of the technical jargon that you put in. So if you can leave that out, just really try and remove that and speak in layman's terms so that we can understand what you're speaking about. We don't need, marital status or any sort of unnecessary info that's not going to have an impact on your application. So we don't need to have those personal details or anything else that's maybe not really a fit in relation to just your work experience. And please don't submit an outdated resume. We want something that's up to date and it shows us a snapshot at the time of application of where you're at. And again, the font, just make it easy to read and nothing that's too long. So if you have less than 10 years of work experience, we should see a resume that's about 1 to 2 pages long. Moving on now to your letters of reference. So we do require this as part of your application. It's a great way for us to see a third-party review of who you are and your work experience and your leadership abilities and things like that. So they can be professional or also academic. We would prefer that they are professional. However, we will accept both. When you are applying to our program, in the online application, you'll be able to enter their contact information and their email address. So when you submit your application and pay your fee, our system will automatically forward them our reference letter template. and they can upload an additional document. So whether that's we do have an MBA specific reference letter template. If you'd like that, if you don't have that already, feel free to let us know. We can send that to you. Or they can also upload a letter that they've written on their company letterhead or anything like that. But once they submit that back to us, we'll be notified of that. Typically, reference letters are the last things to come in. So you might be wondering, I submitted everything, why haven't I heard back? It's likely because we're waiting for your reference letters. So keep in contact with them and just sort of, after you submit your application, just say, hey, I submitted my application. You can be expecting an email, check your junk folder, things like that. Just make sure that you're staying on top of them so that everything gets processed in a timely manner. In terms of who you want to ask to be a reference, really you want somebody that knows you well, opposed to somebody that has a really cool sounding title or something like that. So somebody that's worked with you closely, they can speak to your performance and your strengths and really what you'll contribute to both the in-class and extracurricular experience in the MBA program. And if you're using an academic reference, you'll want to focus on, again, a professor that really knows you well. So maybe you worked with a specific professor on a certain project or something that demonstrates you did something a little bit above and beyond attending classes. And the academic reference should really just offer more than the student received an A in my class and they were, academically great. We want to see something a little bit more than that. And lastly, if you're somebody that owns their own business, we do accept long-term clients or suppliers. So you can certainly ask somebody like that to be a reference. And in addition, we can accept somebody that has maybe had a long-term relationship with you and your business or something like that. So we do accept all of these. Again, if you do have 2 professional references, that would be great, but we will accept others if you fit into those other categories. Moving on now to your statement of intent. So this is, providing us a little bit more information about who you are. It's your chance to sort of be creative and really explain why you're passionate about the MBA program. So it helps us to get to know you a little bit better. And you can also use this document to explain any things in your application that might come up. So for example, if your GPA was a little bit lower, it suffered maybe in a semester due to some certain circumstances, you can explain that in the letter of reference or any other things that you think might be important for us to know. It's more personal than your transcript. So really, this is your story and they're fun to read. We like reading them. So try and make them maybe not just a regurgitation or of your work experience and things like that so far. There's no specific requirements, but we would ask that you keep it within the 1 to 2 page mark. And again, just your chance to be creative. So have some fun with it. And we always like reading those. And I think we'll get into some more specifics on the next slide. So what you're really going to want to focus on when you're writing your statement of intent is it should be a forward-focused document. So again, what you're hoping to do with an MBA, why specifically the University of Alberta, how our program fits with your career goals, what are your career goals, and how Canada and Alberta, Edmonton factor into all of those things. So we also want to know, are there certain extracurriculars that you're going to want to get involved in? What will you contribute to the in-class experience, and then also things outside of the classroom. So really just hitting on all those key points are important. And if you're able to do that, I think that you'll be able to produce a pretty strong statement of intent. Moving on now to the interview section. So far we've talked about everything that comprises your application. So once your application is complete and it's been reviewed by our office, typically once everything's in there within about 1 to 2 weeks, we should be sending out an interview or notification. Otherwise, you'll hear from us in about 1 to 2 weeks of next steps. But if you're invited to complete our first interview, it's through the Kira video talent platform, and it consists of 3 verbal response questions and 1 written question. So for the verbal response questions, you'll have about 30 to 60 seconds to prepare your response, and then about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes to deliver your response. So they are random. Everything is pre-recorded from members of our office. They're quite quick. It goes by very, very quickly. And then for the written response, you'll have 5 minutes to complete that. And if you haven't used the Kira platform before, prior to completing the interview, you can go through sort of a test and make sure that everything is working in terms of your video and things like that. So it shouldn't take you more than maybe 20 minutes to complete. And that would be, I guess, what we're going to talk about for the curate part. In terms of your second interview, so if everything goes well, the second interview will be conducted by a member of our admissions committee. They'll be, I guess, face-to-face. Right now, that would be virtual. So whether that's over Zoom, Google Meet, or Skype, we can do a variety of platforms, whatever works for you. Typically, the interviews are about 30 to 40 minutes in length. And really, this is an opportunity for us to maybe ask any questions that we saw come up through your application, or to get to know you a little bit better, to probe in certain areas, things like that. So it'll be a combination of specific questions and general questions. And it's also your chance to ask us questions. So as much as we want to be a good fit for you, we want our program to be a good fit and vice versa. So we just want to have the opportunity to maybe address any of the things that you have concerns or questions about in the final interview. So at the end of the day, they're just really there to assess your overall fit for the program and just to provide us with that opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. In terms of the timeline, so once the final interview is complete, you should expect a decision from our office within about 1 to 2 weeks. And I do just want to jump back. I know there was a question in the chat about the Kira video interview. So we ask that they're completed typically within about 1 week, but it's up to you. So you might get it back to us within the next day. So that's kind of the ball's in your court with how quickly you want to move through that. And then in terms of the second interview, that will also depend on your availability and our availability, but likely quite quickly those are scheduled, usually within about a week from when we reach out to you. So things will move quite quickly, but once a decision has been made, again, you'll hear back from us within about 1 to 2 weeks after the second interview. You'll be notified through email about our decision. And then again, as Chris mentioned earlier, we forward that recommendation to the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research, or FGSR, and they would be the ones who would provide you with your official admission letter. So they'll typically take about 1 week. It can vary depending on the time of year, but usually about 1 week is how long they'll be taking to get that official letter to you. And then you can expect that our orientation for the full-time program will be in August. And then of course, classes will start in the fall or in September. So if you are interested in applying, we do have our applications open right now. So there is a $100 application fee. Everything in the application system is administered by FGSR. And again, everything is submitted electronically. So we typically find it's a pretty straightforward and streamlined process. Just upload all of your documents to the portal, and then it just gets shuffled over to us. So we do have room left in our fall 2021 cohort if you are looking to apply. So if you are somebody that is applying as a Canadian citizen or a PR, regardless of if you're currently in Canada or outside of Canada, you will have until June 1st to complete your application for the fall 2021 intake. If you are applying as maybe more of an international student where you will be requiring a study visa, then you will have until April 15th to submit your application for the fall 2021 intake. So there's still some time, but if that timeline isn't going to work for you, our applications will open October 1st for the fall 2022 intake. And we do admit on a rolling basis. So that means once we receive everything, we'll go through the whole interview process at that time. And this brings us to our last slide. So that's great. Now we have time for some more questions, but these are the rest of the sessions that we have for the rest of the week. We have 2 sessions, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm going to get my days straight at some point. So we would love to see you at a couple more of those sessions if you're able to attend. I know depending on where you are, the lunch hour or evening might not work well, but if you're able to attend, we'd love to see you. And I think at this point, that concludes our formal presentation. And now we can open it up to some questions that you might have. So thanks everybody for listening so far today.